Okay, folks, it's time for my re-review of Times They Are Changin'. As you can tell, the front cover, he doesn't look happy. I had a hard time reviewing this, but now that I kind of understand the whole meaning of the album and pretty much everything that's within all these songs, you can tell, it's about desolation. It's about really about hatred, hating other people. It's about poverty. It's about racism. It's about everything. And if you want an album that deals with just exactly like that, then this is the album for you. Um, it's not, it's very, it's not shiny. It's basically very dull, as you can tell, black and white. This is how the album is basically, And this was the very first time that he featured his poetry on the back, which is kind of cool. He would do that for many of his other albums, especially Another Side of Bob Dylan, which came after this, because you see this came out early 1964, it came out January the 13th. This was recorded August and Halloween of 1963. This went to number 20 and it went gold, hey. 45 minutes, this was all pretty much original stuff. This is pretty much original material done by Dylan. And all these songs are worth it. He does excellent. I love his harmonica playing. I love his guitar style. You can definitely tell he was a little bit different with some of his style. And you can kind of tell there's a little bit of similarity, to like the freewheeling. So let's talk about the very first song on here called Times They Are Changin', right? It's about change. It's about, hey, move out of the way. Things are changing. Let's keep things moving here. Come gather around people, wherever you may roam, right? Whether you roam. Admitted that the waters around you have grown, Come writers and critics who, prophesize with your pen. There's no telling who's that's naming, for the losers who will be later to win, and I love this kind of stanza here, where it says, "Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command." The road is rapidly getting old. Please get out of the new one if you can. If you can, to lend your hand. For the times they are changing. It's basically about like, hey, all these old things that that you've known and stuff, and all these old ideas they're fading away. It's time for the new to come on board. It's kind of like when the new year, that the New Year's is coming up here. It's like, hey, the New Year's coming, a whole new ascent is coming. So but this is just, even if there's not, people that don't like Bob Dylan, they know the song. It's excellent. It's very great. It's very, it's got the triple meter sort of feel. And this song is just excellent. Just for this album alone, to open up with a song like this. Times They Are Changin'. What a classic song. Then we get the Ballad of Hollis Brown. This is such a deep song. Very, very straightforward with Dylan here. It's basically just like, where he's directing to what he's giving you like these things, like a story. He's telling a story here. Just like Masters of War, he's like pounding, really that pounding rhythm. And so much like that, I love the meaning of this. And it's basically about, how you can fall into depression, and so Dylan tells a story about this guy named Hollis Brown, who lives in South Dakota. He had his own farm, he had a wife, he had children. But he talks about how how it's him, and he has, I guess, 5 other children, 5 kids, So yeah, he falls into poverty, he kind of loses everything, and he kills his wife, he kills his kids, he kills himself. And Dylan basically says that, hey, 7 people have died, but you know what? Where he says in the very last stance right here, or verse or whatever, there's 7 people dead, on a South Dakota farm. There's 7 people dead, blah, blah, blah. Somewhere in the distance, there's 7 new people born. That is just like, whoa, hey, people are easily replaceable. That's what he's saying here in this song. And this is so like, just incredible 5 minutes of just what you're listening to is exactly what you're getting, what you're expecting from Dylan here. And it's just, once again, it's a classic storytelling song that Dylan can just pull off easily, Here's the next one, With God on Our Side. This song is really interesting, It's basically, which I feel like that's everyone, that are the way they're taught and the way they're educated. I feel like I can kind of relate to this a little bit. Well, not really, but you know what I'm saying. There's many people that have been taught different things, and oh, you gotta, you gotta learn to hate the, like what Dylan says here. You gotta hate the Russians. You gotta hate them. So with God on our side, now you gotta learn to just hate other people. That's basically what it is, where he sings about, which kind of, he references a metaphor as God, as basically being, hey, I'm better than you. Heck yeah, I'm, it's great. It almost has it almost feels like he has a feeling, of being like, hey, maybe I like being this way, but I don't know, whatever. Where he has to memorize all these times, like these historical dates and moments and all these different timelines, and World War I, World War II, like you gotta memorize all these things. You see, where he says, oh, my name ain't nothing, my age, it means less, the country I come from is called the Midwest. Oh, the history books tell it, they tell it so well. The cavalry's charged, the Indians fell. The First World War boys, it came and it went. So now as I'm leaving, I'm weary as hell, the confusion I'm feeling. If God's on our side, he'll stop the next war. So it's almost like it's almost like you're hating another race or whatever. It feels like that's what it is, And it's very similar to another song that's on here as well, called Only a Pawn in Their Game, where it's basically about, it's you against them or them against you, that sort of thing, Oh, I hate the color of, I hate your race, that's, so it's almost like you're pointing fingers, kind of, But what a great song. Great song, 5 minutes. I love that song. With God on Our Side, just excellent. Here comes another song called One Too Many Mornings. You may think it's a very slow ballad. It's a ballad song, very, very balladry. And God on Our Side has a little bit of a triple meter feel. A little bit like At Times They Are Changin', sort of. But here comes One Too Many Mornings, where it's kind of about like, like about a lost loved one. And he's basically lying it, being like, hey, where he's kind of leaving, he's kind of having his own independence, kind of, if you will. He's moving on. He's moving to, he doesn't want to look back beyond miles and miles. He doesn't want to remember about, the times of this loved one that he remembers. He says here, and the day is getting dark. As the night comes and a falling, the dogs will lose their bark. And 1,000, yes, I'm one too many mornings, and 1,000 miles behind. Very deep personal song, It's another great one that I love. Here's another one. The next song is North Country Blues. This is basically about where Bob Dylan was brought up, or where he grew up, basically. The Midwest, Minnesota, and all that. And this is dealing with, the way of people getting brainwashed, kind of, if you will. And that's kind of the theme of this album, sort of, if you will. Falling into cheap labor is what it is, you know. Where he says, in the north end of town, my own children are grown, while I was raised on the other in the wee hours of youth. My mother too sick, and I was brought up by my brother. Well, long winters wait from the window. I watch my friends; they couldn't have been kinder. And my schooling was cut as I quit in the spring to marry John Thomas, a miner. So he describes about, you know, the fall of this, you know, of his job, and better yet, knowing that it's going to eventually disappear, vanish, you know. And you know, he kind of refers to work as just sort of like a thing that won't ever last, you know. It won't last. It'll kind of just fade away. And what now? You know, that's what it kind of is, you know. And somehow sort of everything seems to vanish away, like, you know, all the things that he's done, and, you know, well, all his hard work for nothing, basically, you know. So it's kind of a dark song, come to think about it, you know. Here comes the next song, Only a Pawn in Their Game. This is a very excellent song. Has very much a Times They Are Changin', Hard Rain, and Hollis Brown. It has the elements of all those songs, as I mentioned there. It's about the death of Medgar Evers, who was part of the NCAA in 1963. It's a very dark story about basically, you know, just like with God on our side, you know, you see that, you know, it's about like, oh man, you know, I really hate that person. I really hate that person. So, you know, I'm going to do something, you know, I'm going to hate on you. You know, it's sort of that theme and that sort of reoccurring element, you know, where, you know, it's about, hey, I'm going against you here, you know, you know, and people fall into power. They think they're just, oh, look at me, like, you know, dealing with racism, you know, criticizing on others, you know, due to many things, you know, like I've listed, you know, of racism and just whatever. It could be really anything, you know. It's basically, you know, and it's really hard to describe. You know, I don't really want to read the lyrics, you know, but I think I'm pretty sure most of you guys can probably understand the meaning. It's very dark, you know, and most of these songs are very dark, as you can tell, about, you know, these different situations, you know. The next song is Boots of Spanish Leather. Basically, just like Girl from the North Country, it's a triple meter, you know, sort of similar aspect to answer question, question, answer thing. It gets to the point, kind of, if you will, you know. So we can kind of already tell what the song kind of is, basically. So Boots of Spanish Leather. That's a good one. Here comes When the Ship Comes In. This is one of my favorites on this album. You know, it's basically, you know, people can think anyways of that term, when the ship comes in, where it's like, oh, you know, good things are gonna happen. Like, oh, like, you know, great, wonderful, you know, like people thinking like, oh, you know, the return of Jesus, if you will, and that sort of thing. Like, oh, like, you know, people think it's a good thing. You know, it makes them feel good. But the song is not about that. It's about revenge. You know what I mean? It's about you know, it's all about, oh, I'm gonna get you. You know, you're gonna get what's coming. You know, it's sort of like a revenge thing. It's very upbeat. I do like the upbeat nature of the song. Very similar to Times They Are Changin', and its narrative. And there is a very nice extensive harmonica break and solo in the song. So I do like that. Oh, the time will come up and the winds will stop and the breeze will cease to breathe in. like the stillness in the wind before the hurricane begins. Excellent line. The hour that the ship comes in. I like that too. And the sands on the shoreline will be shaking. You know, I like this one too. A song will lift as the mainsail shifts and the boat drifts onto the shoreline. Every face on the deck the hour the ship comes in. And they'll raise their hands saying, we'll meet all your demands. But we'll shout from the below, your days are numbered. And like Pharaoh's tribe, they'll be drowned in the tide, and Goliath will be once conquered. I love that. So it's like, you know, your days of being empowered is coming to an end, you know, and it's so great. So yeah, but right after that, this is another personal song, and that is The Lonesome Death of Hattie, Carroll. It's 5 minutes, but sometimes I can't really listen to this song fully with, you know, because of everything that's wrapped in this album. You can kind of tell here that it's kind of like a, you know, sort of similarity, you know, where he talks about, you know, this wealthy, he was brought up by these wealthy, brought up by wealthy parents. He was brought up in Baltimore, you know, in Maryland. William Zanzinger, you know, basically murdering this hotel patron, you know, maid, if you will, with a stick, with whatever it was, a cane or whatever. An innocent, you know, she was African American, and poor. I feel sorry, you know what I mean? Then he gets a kind of a short, kind of like a imprisonment, you know, being imprisoned, kind of, if you will. And it's basically just like all these other songs, you know, listed here. Sort of, you know, I mean, where people are, you know, getting their equal rights and, you know, fighting with justice and pride, and that's what it is, folks. You know what I mean? And it's difficult, very difficult. And the last song is Restless Farewell. This is just unapologetic, you know, ending, where he's nailing, you know, putting the nail in the coffin, basically saying, I'm not who I am. I'm not who I want to be here. And his last words, you know, well, a false clock tries to tick out of my time, disgrace, distract, and bother me. And the dirt of gossip blows into my face, and the dust of rumors covers me. And the point is slick, it can pierce through dust no matter how thick. So I'll make my stand, and remain as I am, and bid farewell, and not give a damn. And he goes into the harmonica solo thing and all that. And that's how he ends the album, you know? And I can definitely tell as to why he did that. Because he just wants to move on, he wants to be his own person, and that's how he's going to be in the next album, Another Side of Bob Dylan, which of course you can check out, because since I kind of, you know, watching that video, I noticed it's good. My review of that, if you want to check that out. So there you go, folks. My re-review of Times They Are Changin'. This is still a deep personal album, and this is right up there. Times They Are Changin' by Bob Dylan. And there you have it, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.